into a very deep tutorial on Open Broadcaster software, which is a 100% free way for you to live stream to Facebook, YouTube, and a ton of other broadcasting locations to allow you to increase your video marketing reach with video. Okay, so in today's tutorial, we're going to learn how to set up and download Open Broadcaster software 100% for free. We're also going to learn how to configure the scenes and the sources and some of the technical details that trip a lot of people up when they first get started with this program. Next, we're going to learn how to set up your first live stream using Facebook Live. And just to round it all off, we'll also set up a live stream with YouTube Live. So this is going to be a full tutorial, and by the end of it, you're going to be fully competent in doing live streaming, and it's going to be an incredibly useful activity for you to grow your brand online. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the first one here, which is setting up the software itself. And so what we're going to do is get this guy installed, and here I am. Hello there. And this is called Open Broadcaster software. And the easiest way is just go to obsproject.com, and you'll see you have OBS Studio, and they have it for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So pick your operating system there, and you can just click on any of the buttons and download it. And it will download right there, and just click through that to install. I already have mine installed, so I'll kind of skip over that. And they update this very frequently, so definitely make sure when you, if you had it on your computer for a while and you've installed it like this, make sure you go to that little help button every now and then and check for updates. One of the problems with OBS is that because it connects into so many different platforms, that when they have certain updates, or if Facebook makes an update or YouTube makes an update, that can sometimes impact your ability to stream with OBS. So make sure you keep your software up to date. Just go to help, check for updates. Let's see if I have any to install right now. Nope, we're good to go. Alrighty, so once you've installed it, yours is going to look a little bit more barren than mine does right now. You probably won't have anything here, any scenes or any sources. Don't worry, we're going to go ahead and set that up right now and allow you to broadcast exactly how you want. But first, let's just talk about the theory, how this all packages together. So when you're doing broadcasting, it's a little bit different than video editing, and we've covered a lot about video editing in our previous videos in this playlist, so go ahead and make sure you check those out as well. But broadcasting is different because you want to be able to dynamically switch between different scenes on the fly, right? Because you're broadcasting. You're going to go to the weather first and then over to sports and all that. It's that type of setup where you're switching between these different scenes as you're going through live. Whereas on video editing, you're going to record everything, but then do the transitions and stitch it all together in post-processing, which obviously it can be easier to do it that way, but it's also more time-consuming, and it doesn't have the organic feel that just broadcasting and being live right here does for your audience, okay? So the way that you do this in OBS is you set up multiple scenes. And so like in my example of the weather and the news and sports and all that, each one of those different broadcasters would be its own scene, and you'd set those up one by one. And so when you are streaming and you are going live, all you need to do is click across the different scenes, and you'll be able to move across those dynamically as you're broadcasting to your audience. I hope that makes sense. So you want to have at least a couple of scenes set up. One I'd recommend right off the bat is the one that I'm showing you here on OBS, and this is just having your webcam there. So if you don't have a webcam set up for your computer yet, be sure to check out the video. I'll put a link in the description below that shows you the top 7 tools I recommend for doing effective video marketing. This applies for both broadcasting and for pre-recorded video, of course. So once you have your webcam and you have it all plugged in, that should be all you need to do to install it, right? Just plug it in. You're going to want to come here to the scenes area and click on plus. That's going to allow you to add as many scenes as you want to. Since I already have one calling full webcam, I'll call this tutorial full camera. And you want to make sure that these are very well defined, because you might be in that position of being a solopreneur and it's only you running the show, and you want to be able to switch between these scenes without looking too unprofessional and having to delay too much in the process. Okay, so we have the scene set up, but it's entirely blank. So a scene is made up of one or many sources, and the source would be the individual pieces that make up that scene. Let me show you what some of the options are here, and it'll all make sense as we go, I promise. So you've got audio in, audio out, browser, color, display, all sorts of craziness. Let's go ahead and go through building a couple of scenes that are going to use the most common pieces of this puzzle here. So the webcam that we need here is a video capture device. So we'll go here. Again, if you're just setting this up, you won't have anything here. You'll need to create one. So let's go ahead and see how this works here. So we'll say my 1080 Pro webcam, which is the one that I do recommend if you want to get into streaming. And then you get to decide which device is the one that's connected to this source. You know, what is the webcam you actually want to use? And this is, I probably shouldn't have named it exactly that because it's perfect. So this is the webcam that's plugged into my computer right now. I'll select that guy, and you'll notice it doesn't look right now. Let's go ahead and go here to device default, and I'll click on custom. And here's where you can select how the resolution, frame rate, all that stuff looks. What I'm thinking is because I've already set this source up, I don't need to set it up again, and so it's not going to show on the screen right here. So let me actually show you the one that I've made. But you know, as you're going through, you're just going to select what frame rate you want, what resolution you want. The more the merrier, I would assume. But if you are broadcasting, one thing to keep in mind is the internet that you're using is going to be very crucial. So if you're on a kind of slower bandwidth, just because your webcam can go to 1080 doesn't mean that you necessarily should stream in 1080, and it doesn't mean that you should be recording it in 1080. You want to use what's going to allow a good experience for your visitors, and in general, you don't need to have the highest resolution for people to really have a good quality and a good experience. 720p should be just fine. And we'll go ahead and hit OK on this. Now let me show you, I'm going to right click, and you've got a bunch of different options here. What I want to do is switch out to the scene that I've already made that has my webcam, and I'll just show you what that looks like. So if you want to remove scenes or move them around, you can do it all right here. I'll just remove this one scene, say yes, and I'll click the plus button and add my existing one. This is the one that I've already created. And now you can see you have my webcam back because you can only add one webcam in as a source once. I hope that makes sense. So we have our webcam here. And if you ever want to look at it and mess around with it, you can come here to properties and you'll get back to that same area where you can adjust the frame rate or anything else. So for example, now that we have this guy showing up correctly, you can see the settings I'm using, which is 1920 by 1080 and 30 frames per second. I use a pretty decent computer that allows me to run this without any real hiccups, which is a blessing. I'm very grateful for that. And I can also, if I wanted to, just save on space or video size or anything like that. I can come down here to 720. And again, you'll see what happens in the background is my video has shrunk. I'm using a 1080p canvas, which is that black box. That's what's going to be sent to wherever you're broadcasting to. But then you can always just take your content and drag it around, move it up and down, and adjust it as you like it. Okay. But for me, I do like my 1080p, so we're going to go ahead and keep it right there. And one thing also you want to know if you're looking down here is how do you want your audio to be brought in? So as I mentioned in the video about the best things you need when you get started with video marketing, I recommend the microphone is the first investment you make, even before your webcam, which might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but it's really what makes your video able to be listened to. And that's really the most important part, is getting that message out. So when you have your webcam set up or your microphone set up, you can do the default settings here. And you can see I've got several microphones plugged into my computer right now. I am a full geek, it is true. And so you can select your microphone right here so that in one fell swoop, whenever you're doing the video, you're also collecting the audio at the same time. But also most webcams do have their own microphone. What I found is it just doesn't capture very good quality audio, and you can test yours out and go with it and invest as you go if that's the equipment you have. Obviously that's a perfectly good way to go. Okay, so now we have our first scene or our first source set up, which is our webcam. Now let's look around here on the canvas. So when you click on any source, so I'm clicking on the webcam here, you have the ability to move it around if you want to do like a fancy setup where you have maybe a button on one side and you have your webcam or just maybe your screen on one side of the broadcast and your face on the other side. You can move around. This is your canvas to play with. It's very much like PowerPoint. You can also expand it like this and make it full screen, which makes a lot of sense. And a little pro tip, we'll get into the pro tip when we build out a full scene here. This is just the first one you want to go to. You have your webcam set up, and so we're good to go. So now we have a full camera, and I want it just to be full screen like this, so we're good. Let's go ahead and add a second scene here. And we'll make this one where we're going to be sharing our desktop screen and our face at the same time. So a more engaging tutorial style. Screen and face tutorial. Hit OK. Once again, we're back to our nothingness there. So we'll go to our sources one more time. You're getting familiar with this. Click the plus button, and we're going to add our webcam in again, but it's going to be a little bit easier the second time around. When we click on video capture device, we don't need to create a new one anymore. We can just add to our existing device here, video capture, and hit OK, and boom, we're back to where we started. What we want to do on this one, though, is we want this to be a smaller webcam. So we can go ahead and drag this down as we want it. And a little pro tip here is if you want to do not a rectangle because that takes up some unnecessary space, you can hold down the Alt button on Windows and drag a side, and that's going to allow you to go to a bit more of a square and whatever shape you'd want to go into. So that makes it a little bit less intrusive. And what's cool about OBS is if you've gone away for a while and you're coming back to it, you'll wonder what this is supposed to be. You'd see that the sides here are green now, so you can always drag it back and it will return back to its uncropped position nice and easily. So I like that feature quite a lot. Okay, so now we have a webcam here that's not too intrusive. It kind of works for our tutorial. Let's go ahead and add our screen. So I'm going to just add a new source by clicking on the plus button here. And instead of doing video capture device, let's do a display capture. And so depending on how many computers you have or how many computer monitors you have, you'll have a few different options here on which monitor to select. So let's go ahead and choose my main monitor, and I'll hit OK. And then down here in the drop down, you'll see all your different displays. I've got one 1080 and one 1440 display. So we'll use this larger one here just for the sake of demonstration. And you have the option to select the cursor or not. And I'd recommend capturing the cursor. That's the little arrow here. And you want to make sure that people can see that when you're giving a tutorial. So we'll say, OK. And now we'll see here, because I grabbed the bigger monitor, it's too big for the canvas, which is OK. We can just, again, kind of scale this guy down and crop it down. But I would definitely recommend, I think best practice would be choose record in the same resolution. So 1080, 720, 1440 as you're going to broadcast. So if you're going to broadcast a 720p video, and I'll add a resource down below to help you figure out which is the right size to go for you. But if you're going to broadcast out in 720, you don't want to have a 4K TV screen, for example, as the input device. You can always go into your monitor settings and go to display settings and adjust the resolution that you're working with. To make that a little bit easier for you, but you want to use the right resolution for what you're displaying, and you just want to make sure those match. Okay. All right, so we have our guy here, and so we're going to drag him over, and we immediately notice a problem because I added the monitor on first. I'm now covering up my face, which is not what we want in this situation. So just click it and drag it down, and now you can realize this is layering like Photoshop or any real graphic program where you can create multiple layers on top of each other. So don't go crazy with this, but for a face and monitor, that makes total sense. So that'll be a great scene as well. So we've got two scenes created, and you can see here we can quickly click between the two of them and move around as much as we want to. All right, so for the last scene, let's do one more here. And let's get a little bit fancy with this one. So we'll have a message and waiting room. So this would be useful if you want to go live streaming at, let's say, 11:30 in the morning, and you want to start the live stream at 11:20 in the morning, giving you 10 minutes to kind of get started and let people come in and maybe pre-chat with your folks before you start getting into the content. A waiting room scene would make a lot of sense here. And what I would do for this one is a couple things. You can add some direct text, and we'll just say welcome text. And once you're here, you can go and just type in welcome. We will get started shortly, or something like that. And on the font size, I'll go ahead and go to select font and increase the size to maybe 48. Good enough. And you can drag that as well. This one isn't all that important, but it's, You can add whatever text you want in here. And so you can imagine if you're doing any other application, like you're trying to sell something, you could have a link to the buy button or the link to the special deal page in this text as well. And it's very easy to double click on it and you can adjust it right there, even midstream. And then the last thing we want to do here is maybe add an image. So we'll click plus an image and we'll call this the welcome image and we'll hit OK. And then you can browse your computer for anything that looks like a waiting sign, waiting room. Let me go ahead and find one for you here. Okay, so here was a recent thumbnail from a video I recently did. It'll work for this purpose here. And we'll say OK. And so now you can see you've got a nice little waiting room area here. You could maybe choose to just make the entire screen that image. But we'll say for the example here, let's just crop this down. We'll have a welcome message and the waiting room. And now we have our full setup here of multiple scenes for our live streaming. All right, very cool. There are a ton of things you can do within OBS as you look through the menu here. You could spend weeks getting it tweaked and fit up just the right way, but this is going to be enough to get you 90% of the way there, which is really the goal here. Okay, so after that, you can kind of play around on your own and figure out what is the right settings for you. But the most important settings we want to deal with here before we get into actually setting up a live stream is by going to the settings down here in the bottom right, and you'll see some of your settings here. And what I think is most important to set up, if you go down here to video, your base canvas resolution and output scaled resolution. And what that means basically is when you're recording content, what is the size of the screen that you're recording to? You know, how big is that black square that you're going to be filling up, right? And then output scaled resolution is if I'm going to stream this out or do anything with an output of this video, what size do I want that to be? Now it's a little bit confusing why it would be different, but what you can basically imagine is if you want to record this video as a 1080p video, but you want to stream it in a lower quality because your internet connection is not quite good, you might choose 1080p for the base resolution, and then you might choose 720 for the scaled resolution. I'm going to advise you don't do that. I mean, that's why they set this up, so you can have those different settings, but you're going to have the best quality if these numbers match. So if you're going to stream in 720, go ahead and record in 720 and make sure they match. Oops. That way, you're not going to have any overly pixelated text. You know, it's going to look nice and crisp on the screen as well as on your recording. So that's a setting I want you to take a look at. But if your internet's not the best, I would recommend just go ahead and bump this down to 720 and you'll have good results, no problem. And then on the output, one thing that I recommend you do definitely is if you're going to stream out to Facebook or YouTube, also keep a recording on your computer. If you want to do any splicing or editing and repurposing that content, that's a great strategy to do. So on the output section here, you can go to your recording area and make a file location where you want those recordings to go to. If you do this quite frequently, this will build up to be a pretty large folder, so you'll have to clean it out every now and then, but I always find it's beneficial to have a backup just in case. We have had instances where we couldn't go back into Facebook and get the recording after the fact, and so by having this kind of a backup here, that's a great solution to have. All right, so now at this point, we have OBS set up quite well. We have a couple scenes ready to go, and now it's time to set up our live streaming. So if you want to stream to Facebook, you're just going to want to go to this link here, facebook.com/live/create. And I'll click this guy here to show you what it looks like. And it's going to say go live with your gear. So instead of just going live on your phone, you can do it using this, which is a much better way to do it. Just click on that create live stream option here. And then this information here is what you're going to want to copy. I would recommend using a persistent stream key. That's going to allow you to not have to go and do this process every single time you go live. So go ahead and click that, use a persistent stream key if it's not already clicked. And this is going to be the stream key that you want. Copy this. And I'm going to go ahead and reset this so you guys can't use it. So copy your stream key and you're good to go. And come back into OBS. Now we're here back in our settings and we can go to the stream option. And you'll notice here that I'm currently set up to stream using Restream. I've done a video review very recently on Restream. It's a great platform for doing multiple streams at once using different input sources. I definitely recommend it, and there's currently a lifetime deal. So you can head to incomesh.com/restream and check that deal out as well while it's still available. But in this example, we're going to do a Facebook Live here. So we'll go Facebook Live, and under server, default is fine. And then that stream key that you had from over here, you would just paste that into the stream key here and hit OK, and you'll be good to go. So once you've done that, you'll just want to go ahead and update the little text that goes with your video, the title, the tags, anything like that, and you'll be able to hit the Go Live button and click the Start Streaming button on OBS, and you'll be live on Facebook, and ta-da, go for it. Now let's do YouTube as well. So if you want to set up your YouTube streaming, you're going to want to go to your YouTube dashboard and go to the live area. And the YouTube dashboard, it always changes a little bit. So right now, if you want to find it, you go to your YouTube dashboard, other features, and live events, and stream now. There's two different ways of streaming with YouTube. Stream now is kind of the easiest. You just always have it available and you can pop in and go live. Live events, you're going to have to create the event every time you do it. Pick one and go with it. I don't know if there's really a best one right now. I haven't figured it out myself yet. So we'll do a stream now for now. And then this will show you here the thumbnail that you have, any title information that you want to set up for that specific stream. And you'll also get your information here. Just click on reveal, copy that stream key and name, and then you'll go back into OBS, back to settings, back to stream. And if you're doing YouTube, you'll see here YouTube and YouTube Gaming. And you'll see you put the stream key right there. And oh, look at that. I think it's going to take you directly to it, but we've just found it. So, and then you'll be able to do the same thing. Hit OK. Click the Start Streaming button, and you're going to be live on YouTube as well. Going through this process, if you want to build an audience on Facebook and YouTube, it's going to be a little frustrating constantly switching which stream key you're using for that event. This is why I really recommend the Restream.io deal right now, because once you set it up, if you have Restream set up on your side, let me just show you what that looks like. Once you set up your Facebook and YouTube once, all you have to do to decide where you're streaming to is toggle on or off this little button here. So if you're one of those who gets kind of scared going through menus and setting up all these different encrypted keys, I feel you. I understand. It's not fun. So this would be the great deal to set up to do this on your own as well. And once you are live and I would recommend you have a second monitor. If you want to share one of your screens, it's a good idea. Just get like an $80 monitor. It doesn't have to be fancy or anything to have your OBS screen there live with you. What's beneficial of that is you can come here and quickly click on the screen, on the scene that you want to show in that moment. You know, the worst thing about streaming is if you're streaming for like 10 minutes and you're talking to your audience and you realize you're showing your screen and not your face, and it's just not a good time. So it's good to make sure you're watching your scenes that you're working with, and don't get too fancy with it. Maybe have one or two scenes. This waiting room, you're never going to use it once you get started. So just have your face and have a screen and your face if you'd like to, and you'll be good to go with live streaming. I really hope this video was helpful and you got some value from it. Please leave a comment below what you like or dislike about OBS. If you have any questions or you're trying to do something, like I said, there's a ton that we could show, but I want to keep it simple and get you guys up and started. So now you're empowered to go on Facebook, go on YouTube, and start live streaming and building your audiences like I'm doing here every day. So if you enjoyed this, subscribe to my channel and click the like button to get notified when I release new videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.